І вчора рішення про те.
The decision to cancel the fake elections on October the 18th and November the 1st ends the biggest threat to the Minsk agreements. It was on November the 2nd last year when fake elections were held that the peace process was stopped and guns were heard again. It showed that we are able to and will act effectively.
Let's speak now to Andrij Dobriansky in New York City. He's the United Nations representative for the Ukrainian World Congress, which helps support 25 million Ukrainians at home and abroad. Sir, thank you so much for joining us here on Al Jazeera. So, first of all, what do you think of Ukraine's President Petro Poroshenko's words that this is a real truce? Do you echo those feelings?
The president's speech was preceded by 48 hours without a single injury on the front line. That, in my mind, is why the president thought it best to start talking about this. However, that was very shortly undercut by 4 Ukrainian soldiers being deeply injured by an anti-tank missile being fired on their position today. There is still conflict that exists in eastern Ukraine, in the regions of Luhansk and Donetsk, and unfortunately, while we're talking about a de-escalation, a withdrawal of small caliber, that is any ammunition smaller than 100 millimeters, that is only currently being undertaken in one region, Luhansk. The region of Donetsk, where most of the heavy fighting has been concentrated in, those forces refuse on the Russian side to remove the weapons currently and are giving themselves an announced date of 2 weeks from now to withdraw their weapons. So it's not a full withdrawal. As the president stated, he is optimistic that these periods of time, as we had the 48 hours of no injuries, will continue a little bit longer. But again, the message was severely undercut by another attack on Ukrainian forces.
Just going back to Donetsk, I mean, the fighters are meant to pull back there, I think, on October 18th as well. So a matter of weeks, we'll see how that goes. Yeah. You mentioned this attack in the past 4 hours, which did happen after the president made his statement. But we have seen in the recent past a de-escalation of some sort, or would you deny that altogether? Do you not think that there has been any concrete steps towards a truce, as Poroshenko puts it?
The entire purpose of Putin's invasion of Ukraine was to stop the reforms being made by the Ukrainian government, stop this revolution that had begun in the streets and has started taking over the government in terms of concrete reforms that the citizenry asked for. Putin will not rest until he has some kind of effective control over Ukraine again. And to that end, even with a minimum withdrawal, again, of only small caliber weaponry, that's a bare minimum that he agreed to with Hollande and Merkel. But that is not even covering the military installations that were newly built within the regions of Luhansk and Donetsk, as well as the major installation just outside the Ukrainian border, which is going to be a major Russian military base devoted to fighting NATO forces, the training of Russian troops to fight against NATO techniques.
We have, of course, seen since the 30th of September the Russian military involvement in Syria, direct military involvement. What impact do you think that's going to have on the situation in Ukraine?
Well, twofold. One being that we know that some of the early special forces, the ones who were introduced into Crimea and then further into Donetsk and Luhansk, those very same personnel have now been identified as operating within Syria. So we know some of the special forces units have now been moved over. That does not mean that there is a diminution of the number of Russian forces in Ukraine. There are several thousand Russian forces in Ukraine currently, so that they're not being airlifted to Syria. However, the other long-term strategy is to see how many resources Putin can marshal for this eighth of his conflicts that he's involved in. The key thing there is Putin has been supplying a lot of armaments for the soldiers in eastern Ukraine. However, they have also been supplying themselves with a heavy narcotic strain in eastern Ukraine, which has led to a number of health tragedies humanitarian-wise. And that's why part of the Minsk agreement and the discussions in Paris last week involved getting open access for OSCE to those areas, and that has not yet come.
Andrij Dobriansky speaking to us from New York City, UN representative for the Ukrainian World Congress. Sir, thank you.